everybody. I'm Matt Valle, and welcome to episode number 74 of the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we share the super cool backstories and side gigs of the research and insights pros that you trust. Super excited today to welcome Andrea Poe to the program. Andy is the founder and CEO of a really cool agile insights firm called TasteMakers Research Group, who pioneered a really innovative testing methodology called the pop-up CLT, which is some really cool stuff. Now, Andrea has done work for many great brands and companies along the way, like Del Monte and the Wonderful Group and Coca-Cola and many others. But she's also a member of the International Sensory Evaluations Standards Committee for the American Society of Testing and Materials. That's a mouthful, no pun intended. Now, that's right. Now, earlier in her career, Andy worked at the convergence of research and rock and roll for early free file sharing site called mp3.com that actually predated Napster, if you can believe that. So that's really interesting. I can't wait to dig into that and more with Andy today. So welcome to the podcast, Andy.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I love research and I love rock and roll. So I think we have a lot to talk about.
You're in the right place, that's for sure.
I feel like I am.
Now, I do have to say, I'm wearing my college colors here today, Minnesota Gophers, because Andy and I are both alums of the University of Minnesota. We're both Golden Gophers, so that's cool stuff. So I'm happy to have you on for that reason alone. Yeah, go Gophers, absolutely. Cool. All right, so let's get into it, Andy. Let's talk research. So I know you went to Minnesota and you were at the Minnesota Daily, the paper, which is really cool. But how did research pop up into your career?
So early on, I had jobs in media and advertising and marketing. And I really just always took a research focus. I was just interested in knowing why people buy what they buy and how they came to that decision. So it was just a curiosity. And I think most people in research, understand that and feel the same for the most part. So, but at the Minnesota Daily, I started as an account executive, and Dinky Town was my territory. And then I got promoted to marketing director. And about the same time, Rev 105, the radio station, came out.
Yeah, absolutely. Rev 105. I remember it well.
Yep. And so I wanted to do a partnership with them, so that they could kind of elevate us, because that was like the big first alt rock radio station in Minnesota, probably one of the first really big ones in the nation, I'm guessing.
Right.
And so what I did is I sent a bouquet of flowers made out of the Minnesota Daily newspapers, and I sent it anonymously, sort of like this, partner, like love letter to Kevin Cole. And he called me back.
That's awesome. I love that.
So that was sort of so that was kind of one of my first forays into working with music and media. I went on to, when I moved back to Michigan, I ended up moving back to Michigan because I got my MBA. But before that, I worked as an account executive for a radio station in Grand Rapids, Michigan called WLAV. And that was the classic rock radio station that covered, all of Southwest Michigan. So that was great, working at a radio station. And, I love the classic rock. I grew up with the classic rock in the 70s.
Yeah.
And, it's probably still, I got to say, pretty sure it's probably still my favorite genre.
All right. We'll explore that a little bit later. So where did research come into play?
So when I was, again, then this was when I was the Minnesota Daily. So these were two media jobs, and WLAV, they had at WLAV, at the radio station, they had really cool tools where you could sort of, look at the demographics in a certain area. So what I would do is I would match, I would find these companies or businesses or products, and I would sort of match the demographics of the listenership to a company's demographics, and it sort of really helped me to sell a lot of advertising.
Yeah.
WLAV.
Awesome. It works. Research works.
It does. It does work. Definitely. And then I also had a job for a company called Wolverine Worldwide. And what they do is they manufacture and market shoes. So some of their brands are Caterpillar, Merrill, Coleman, Hush Puppies. I'm not sure if they still have all of those. But while I was working there, they sent me to the CMJ Music Festival.
Oh, nice.
And it was the Caterpillar brand. And I got to drop off shoes for Billy Corgan, Smashing Pumpkins.
Wow.
The band Not a Surf. Yeah. And Beth Orton.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. That's really cool. All right.
It was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, brushes with fame there. That's really cool. All right, so tell us about TasteMakers.
So TasteMakers Research Group, we are a mainly a consumer taste test methodology called the pop-up CLT, which stands for consumer location testing. So essentially, what we do is we go to the consumer. Sort of where they live, work, and play. We kind of, where they're comfortable, where they're in an environment where they can be themselves, and yet it's still anonymous, so they can write all kinds of interesting things in our open-ends, because it's a very authentic approach to sort of, reaching people in their own environment versus calling people into sort of a sterile focus group facility and, having somebody looking over their shoulder or interviewing them face to face, which can kind of be a little uncomfortable sometimes.
Sure. Yeah, meeting them where they are. And so I love that subtle difference. Instead of central location testing, it's consumer location testing, right? Meeting them there. That's really cool. Awesome. So I know from when we talked before, you worked for MP3, and that's some early days when file sharing and streaming was a much maligned space, right? It's completely disrupting the whole business model for music. So tell us about that experience.
Right. So I ended up moving to California because why not, right? I did. I got a job as research manager for mp3.com. And this is right in the 1999, 2000 .com boom. So mp3.com raised about $350 million in their IPO. Oh, Billy Idol played at the IPO party.
Wow.
And I know it was really extravagant. It was a really extravagant time. I don't think we're going to see that again. So the company raised all that money, but they don't own the technical or digital license to mp3.com, and they didn't own any music content. It was literally just the URL that they had, the mp3.com. So
those are crazy.
Right. It was crazy times, but it's so exciting to be in that. Because I remember going to work, and every day there'd be 20 new people there.
Yeah. Crazy. So what did research entail back then?
So what the research entailed was, online surveys. I was doing Zoomerang back then.
Oh yeah.
I think it might still be around.
Zoomerang,
yeah. Old school Zoomerang.
Yeah.
And a lot of secondary research and compiling reports for management. But then also, on the consumer side, I would talk to consumers about about usability, which I know you're very familiar with.
Yep.
And one of the examples I use is that way back then, I remember I still had AOL, and there wasn't really such thing as broadband except for maybe at work.
Right.
So, so I remember, I had some mock-ups where they're trying to figure out how to let people know if they had broadband, they could listen to it in high speed, or if it was dial-up, they wanted to select that. So this was actually kind of my first foray into pop-up CLT, I would say, because I would take boards, down to the beach, and I would ask people, which one they think they would understand as far as something being, lower speed or higher speed. And so we ended up coining a lo-fi and hi-fi for those options back in 1999.
Oh, so cool. So cool. So I know you're working in high tech, right, back then, and now you do a lot of consumer products, sort of like, less traditional to more traditional now. So what have you kind of learned from, beyond, hey, here's an opportunity to do pop-up CLT, but is there anything else you learned from that space that you've applied to the work that you're doing now?
Absolutely. Being in market research, I think what I always try to do is look at it from a marketer's perspective, because anytime you're doing research, it's got to tie back to sales,
right,
or market share, or brand relevance. And that's really, I think, what helps with my marketing background is that I can speak their language versus speaking a research language, which sometimes, no offense to all my research people who are the best, by the way, they're just the nicest people, and the smartest people and the most hardworking, but can be a little obtuse sometimes.
Yep.
So it's important to really, speak the language of your audience, which is generally, so we work with a ton of brand managers, CMOs, marketing directors, even, CEOs, because we, for smaller companies. And so we need to really translate what we're doing into how that will grow their business.
Yeah. I love the fact that early on you were responsible for the results of research. Way back when you're trying to sell media, right? You're relying on the data. Either it works or it doesn't, but you can feel it in your guts. If it's actually going to help you or not. And that's such a valuable perspective in terms of what you're doing now. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say, again, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if we're talking about shoelaces, soap, semiconductors, or System of a Down.
Yeah.
It's all the same. We all have the same goals. And I bring up System of a Down because I also had a job where I shared an office with him, with Shavo.
You're kidding me.
Wow. It was really nice.
I gotta hang out with you more, Andy.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow, that's so cool. All right, so you have been kind of at the forefront of a lot of things in research, different kinds of companies, but also methodologies that you've brought to bear. So from your perspective, what do you see as you look at the future of research?
Well, I think, again, keeping things simple, what TasteMakers does, it's a very simple concept. People call it genius, but it's really just practical on all levels.
Right.
So the mechanics of calling someone in and pre-recruiting them one at a time is obviously longer. It's going to take longer, and it's going to be more expensive than going to where we're already going to find higher incidence for example, you know, a nutrition bar or a lemonade, a fast food lemonade, than the general population. And we set up and we make it easy for them to get screened in and take a survey, and then they'll get a you know, a incentive reward gift card at the end for their participation.
Yeah, cool, awesome. So I know you're super busy, right? And this is a podcast, so I'm curious to know what media you turn to. Could be a podcast, could be any kind of media. What do you turn to for inspiration, insight, or enjoyment?
Well, I do like Twitter.
Okay.
I like Twitter. You know, we've got our TasteMakers research Twitter, and I have my, you know, Andrea Poe, CEO TasteMakers Twitter. I also have an anonymous Twitter, you know, where I can just you know, say whatever.
I'll take that as a challenge.
I know, right?
I'm gonna find you.
But it's funny, you know, I mean, media, I actually, it's so funny. I have Napster now. I have the paid version of Napster.
Oh, wow.
But
yeah.
Going back to that, you know, Napster and mp3.com suffered the same fate, where they basically took all the music, like literally all the music, all the CDs that were out, put them on their servers, and then let people listen to them for free.
Yep.
And then they got sued out of existence.
Yeah, right.
Oh, so that's how that story ended. But yeah, I have Napster now, so I have my playlists, and I enjoy. And I actually have Amazon Music as well. So cool. I enjoy just looking for new music and making new playlists and that kind of thing.
Okay, very nice. All right, so you brought up the topic of music. So this is really what we want to talk about, right? So you've mentioned a few things, you know, some elbows you've rubbed along the way and some of the music you listened to growing up, but now it's the real test, right? So Andy, you're stranded on a desert island. You've got 3 records of your choosing to keep you company for the rest of your days. What are those records?
Okay, so I thought about this, you know, because we've been talking for a couple of weeks, and I wanted to pick records that I can, you know, where I enjoy every single song.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And it gives me a little bit.
Yeah.
What's that?
No bummers.
Exactly. So, you know, because, you know, we don't really listen, you know, all of my music is on a playlist. So, and I just randomize it.
Yep.
So, but there used to be a time when there were several, you know, albums, many that I would listen to, you know, all at the same time. Sure. And so that's kind of how I was thinking about it. And what I came up with is my first one would be Tom Petty, Full Moon Fever.
Ah, yes, very nice record.
Yeah. My classic rock roots. And then my second would have to be New Order Substance.
Oh, yes.
Plus it's a double album, so.
Yeah, exactly. So double the fun there. You turn 3 into 4.
Exactly. And then the last one I would have to say, which I already told you, is Def Leppard, Pyromania.
Yes.
I can always listen to that, you know, from cover to cover, or, you know, A side and B side and back and forth. So.
Yeah. That record was absolutely seminal for me as well. I remember in my neighborhood, we had the one really cool kid. His name was Scott Hobbs, and he had the biggest boom box. And he'd walk down the street with the boom box, and he was playing Pyromania. Either that or Joan Jett, I Love Rock and Roll, one or the other. But you got out of Scott's way because the cool was just, you could only fit so much on one street, so much cool on one street.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, we had those guys too, and it was at that time it was pretty awesome and pretty different. But you know, actually, I think one of my favorite bands is Guns N' Roses. I don't have them on there just because Appetite is, I I've just heard it so many times. But I got to say, I think that my favorite Guns N' Roses song is called 14 Years, and it's on Use Your Illusion 2.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then after that, there's a song called Get in the Ring, and it's got to be the most rock and roll song I mean, it's got to be up there with the most rock and roll song of rock and roll songs.
You know what? I'm going to check it out because honestly, I did love Appetite. It was, for me, it was a guilty pleasure because I was more on the thrash metal side back then,
Right.
It was Slayer and Metallica and everything like that. And so Guns N' Roses, that's hair metal.
Yeah.
Appetite was so good that.
It was good. I mean, it is good. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know User Illusion so much, so I'm definitely going to check out those tunes. So
check out Use Your Illusion 2. I believe they're it's a CD, but I was going to say B-side, but I don't even know if people know what that means anymore. So
yeah, I know you got to be careful with some of these terms. They're like, what?
What? Exactly.
Even
like the pencil and the cassette.
Some people give me grief for making this Desert Island Question about 3 albums because it's about playlists now. So
but that's why it made me think, which ones would I want with me that I can just, listen to every single song and enjoy, practically every single song just as much as I always have.
Awesome. Well, excellent choices, Andy. This has been a great chat. Next time I'm in Los Angeles, would love to get together.
Yes.
Have a cup of coffee, rock
definitely.
A little bit here and there. So we'll figure it out. But let's definitely stay in touch and rock and roll.